The explosion came without warning. One moment. Daniel Cross was nursing his third glass of Terran whiskey at the grimiest corner booth of the Void's Edge Tavern, contemplating whether hauling cargo for another decade would finally be enough to forget the war. The next, the entire eastern wall erupted in a cascade of twisted metal and superheated plasma. Years of combat reflexes kicked in before his conscious mind could process what was happening. Daniel rolled backward off his seat, the motion carrying him behind an overturned Duraplast table, just as razor-sharp shrapnel whistled through the space where his head had been. The acrid stench of ozone and burning synthetics filled his nostrils. Screams echoed through the smoke-filled chaos, mixing with the distinctive whine of energy weapons charging up. Through the haze, he spotted her. She couldn't have been more than 20 standard years old, though with aliens, age was always a guess. Pinned beneath a collapsed support beam, her iridescent blue skin was marred by dark purple blood seeping from a gash on her forehead. What struck Daniel most weren't her forearms desperately trying to lift the beam, or even the crystalline structures growing from her temples, like organic crowns. It was the look in her violet eyes, not panic, but cold calculation, as if she was solving a complex equation, even while facing death. Another explosion rocked the tavern. Through the gaping hole in the wall, 3 figures in midnight black combat armor advanced, their plasma rifles sweeping the room with practiced precision. Professional killers, not random terrorists. This was an assassination. Daniel should have stayed down, should have crawled to the back exit like every other survivor with half a brain. He'd done his time playing hero for Earth Defense Force. 32 confirmed combat drops, more medals than he could fit on his dress uniform. And what had it gotten him, dead friends? Nightmares that tasted like burning ozone, and a discharge with full honors that felt more like abandonment than reward. But those eyes, those damn violet eyes that reminded him of Sarah's in those final moments on Kepler Station, when she'd pushed him into the escape pod and sealed the door from the outside. "Void, take it all," Daniel muttered, then burst from cover. The first assassin never saw him coming. Daniel's shoulder caught him in the solar plexus, the momentum carrying both men into a still standing pillar. Even through the armor, Daniel heard ribs crack. He grabbed the plasma rifle as the assassin doubled over, spun it around, and put 2 shots center mass. The armor absorbed most of the impact, but it bought him seconds. The second killer was already turning, rifle rising. Daniel dove forward, sliding across the debris-strewn floor as plasma bolts seared the air above him. His stolen rifle came up, and he fired not at the assassin, but at the damaged ceiling above. A shower of molten metal and sparking cables crashed down, forcing the attacker to leap backward. The third one was smarter, taking cover behind an overturned gaming table, laying down suppressing fire that kept Daniel pinned. Each plasma bolt that struck his makeshift cover sent chunks of composite material flying. The rifle in his hands showed half charge, maybe 6 shots left. Then he heard it, a sound like crystal chimes in a hurricane. The girl under the beam was singing. No, not singing, chanting. The crystalline structures on her temples began to glow, with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with her words. The metal beam pinning her began to vibrate, its molecular structure literally humming in resonance. Daniel had seen a lot of alien abilities during the war, but this was new. Whatever she was doing, she needed time. He popped up, fired 2 shots to keep the assassins' heads down, then grabbed a broken chair leg. In one fluid motion, he hurled it like a spear at the nearest emergency light fixture. The impact shattered the plasma bulb, plunging that section into darkness. 2 more throws, 2 more lights out. The tavern became a patchwork of shadows and amber emergency strips. The assassins had low-light gear, but Daniel had spent 3 years fighting in the pitch-black caverns of Mining World Sigma. Darkness was an old friend. He moved like smoke between cover points, using the chaos and screams of other patrons as audio camouflage. The second assassin, the one he'd forced back with falling debris, was trying to flank the girl's position. Daniel let him pass, then rose from the shadows behind him. His arm snaked around the assassin's neck, not to choke, but to find the armor's emergency release. Every combat suit had one, a failsafe against vacuum breaches. His fingers found the recessed button, pressed and twisted. The armor's back panel ejected with a pneumatic hiss. The assassin spun, trying to bring his rifle around, but Daniel was already inside his guard. Palm strike to the throat, knee to the exposed lower back, then a brutal hammer blow to the temple as the man fell. The assassin crumpled, his rifle clattering across the floor. 2 down, 1 to go. A plasma bolt seared past Daniel's ear. So close he felt his skin blister from the heat. The third assassin had given up on suppressing fire and was advancing on the girl. Her chanting had reached a crescendo, the beam pinning her actually starting to bend upward, defying its own weight. Daniel scooped up the fallen rifle, checked the charge 3 shots, and sprinted forward. Not toward the assassin, but past him, diving and sliding across the floor to reach the girl. The assassin's shots tracked him, leaving molten scores in the deck plating inches behind his movement. He reached her, just as her strength gave out, the chanting stopping as she gasped for air. The beam started to settle back down. "No time for introductions," Daniel grunted, jamming the rifle under the beam like a lever. "When I lift, you roll. Got it." Those violet eyes met his, and for a moment, he saw something flicker there, surprise. Maybe. Or recognition. She nodded once. Daniel put everything into it, every muscle fiber screaming as he heaved upward. The rifle's power pack sparked and whined under the strain. The beam rose 6 inches, 8, 12. Now. She rolled clear with surprising grace for someone with 4 arms. Just as the rifle's power pack exploded. The force threw Daniel backward, the beam crashing down where the girl had been a heartbeat before. The third assassin stood over them both, rifle aimed at the girl's head. "Target acquired. Eliminating Lyra Kareth." Kareth. Daniel knew that name. Everyone in the Galactic Concord knew that name. One of the 12 noble houses that essentially ruled a third of civilized space. Which meant this girl wasn't just any alien. She was royalty. The assassin's finger tightened on the trigger. Daniel's hand found the combat knife in his boot. A 20-centimeter piece of Terran steel he'd carried through 32 drops. It left his hand in a single fluid motion, developed through countless hours of practice in ship corridors, where firearms were suicide. The blade punched through the gap between helmet and chest plate, finding the soft tissue beneath. The assassin stumbled, his shot going wide, plasma bolt vaporizing a section of wall. He tried to speak, probably to send a final transmission to his handlers, but only managed a wet gurgle before collapsing. Silence fell over the ruined tavern, broken only by distant sirens and the soft moaning of wounded patrons. Daniel struggled to his feet, his entire body feeling like one giant bruise. The girl, Lyra, was already standing, her 4 arms moving in what he assumed was some kind of diagnostic pattern over her injuries. "You saved me," she said, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that made it sound like 3 people speaking in perfect unison. "You have no idea what you've just done." "Yeah, well..." Daniel retrieved his knife, wiping it clean on the dead assassin's cloak. "Seemed like the right thing to do at the time. You might want to call your security detail or..." The air in front of them shimmered, and 3 figures materialized as if stepping through invisible curtains. Teleportation. High-end, military-grade teleportation that cost more than Daniel made in a decade. All 3 were female, clearly related to Lyra, based on the similar blue skin and crystalline crown structures, though each was distinct. The one on the left stood tallest, her bearing screaming military authority, with scars crisscrossing her exposed arms like a roadmap of violence. The middle one had an amused smile playing at her lips. Her 4 arms, decorated with intricate tattoos that seemed to move when Daniel wasn't looking directly at them. The one on the right made his blood run cold. She didn't just look at him. She dissected him, her gaze calculating every possible way to kill him where he stood. "Sisters," Lyra said, and Daniel's stomach dropped. "Meet Daniel Cross. He just became my Catheri." The three sisters exchanged glances that carried entire conversations. The military one stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of command. "I am Serenia Kareth, first daughter of the noble house Kareth. You have saved our youngest sister from certain death. Do you understand what this means?" "Look, It means—" the tattooed sister interrupted, her smile widening to show teeth that were definitely too sharp to be comforting. "That you're now bound to our family by the oldest laws of our people. How delightfully unexpected. I'm Eris, by the way, second daughter. Though birth order is such a tedious way to introduce oneself. Don't you think?" The cold one finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying perfectly through the chaos. "Vera, third daughter, we should move. The assassins rarely work in single cells." Daniel looked between the four sisters, his mind trying to process what was happening. "Wait, bound? What do you mean, bound? I just pulled her out from under a beam." "The Quatheri bond," Serenia explained, though her tone suggested she was explaining water being wet. "Any who saves the life of a Kareth daughter becomes their bonded protector. It's a connection that transcends simple obligation. You are now, in essence, part of her soul. Part of her." Daniel ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit from his military days. No. I'm a freelance cargo hauler. I haul things. I specifically got out of the protection business. I don't do bonds or souls or whatever mystical." Another explosion, this one from somewhere above them in the station. The lights flickered, and emergency klaxons began wailing. "We can discuss the philosophical implications later," Vera said, producing a small device from her belt. "House Dravok has made their move. This entire station is probably compromised." "Dravok?" Daniel asked, though he was already checking his weapons, soldier instincts overriding his confusion. "They're behind this." "Who else would dare attack a Kareth so openly?" Eris laughed, though there was no humor in it. "Oh, this is going to be such fun. It's been ages since we had a proper blood feud." Serenia turned to Daniel, her expression grave. "Daniel Cross, you have two choices. Come with us now. Accept the protection of House Kareth while we sort out the implications of the Catheri bond. Or stay here and try to explain to station security why 3 Dravok assassins are dead at your feet." Daniel looked at the bodies, at the ruined tavern, at his half-finished whiskey, now mixed with debris on the floor. His quiet life as a cargo hauler had lasted exactly 3 years, 4 months, and 6 days. He should have known it was too good to last. "I don't suppose option 3 is we all pretend this never happened, and I go back to hauling cargo." Lyra stepped closer to him, and he could feel something, a warmth, a presence, like standing next to a fusion reactor, but somehow comforting rather than threatening. "I'm afraid not. The bond is already forming. You'll feel it soon. The need to protect, to be near. Fighting it will only cause pain for both of us." "Fantastic," Daniel muttered. "Absolutely fantastic." More explosions. Closer now. Through the hole in the tavern wall, Daniel could see Dravok fighters descending from the upper levels of the station, their black hulls like predatory birds against the starfield. "Choose quickly," Vera said, her hands already glowing with the same energy Lyra had displayed earlier. "They're coming for all of us now." Daniel took one last look at his simple life disappearing into smoke and flames, then sighed. "All right. But I want it on record that all I did was save one alien girl. One. This whole sisters thing is not what I signed up for." Eris's grin turned predatory. "Oh, my dear Daniel, you haven't signed up for anything yet. This is just the beginning." Serenia activated the teleportation device, and the world dissolved into streams of light. Daniel's last coherent thought before the transportation scrambled his molecules was that he really should have just finished his drink and left when he had the chance. When reality reassembled itself, Daniel found himself standing in what could only be described as a palace. Crystalline walls rose impossibly high, their surfaces reflecting and refracting light in patterns that hurt to follow. The floor beneath his feet seemed to be made of solid starlight, and he could see galaxies spinning slowly in its depths. "Welcome to the Kareth Citadel," Serenia announced. "Your new home." "My new—" Daniel started, then stopped as a wave of sensation hit him. It was like someone had plugged him into a battery, every nerve ending suddenly hyper-aware. He could feel Lyra's presence like a beacon in his mind, her emotions relief, curiosity, something else he couldn't quite identify bleeding into his consciousness. "The bond is establishing itself," Lyra said softly. "I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted." "Yeah. Well..." Daniel forced himself to stand straighter, falling back on military bearing to keep himself centered. "In my experience, we rarely get what we want. We just deal with what we get." "How remarkably human," Vera observed, circling him slowly. "Tell me, Daniel Cross, how many Dravok have you killed before today?" "None. Those were my first..." "Interesting. You fought like someone with experience killing our kind." "I've killed lots of things. The war didn't care about species distinctions." "The Terran Defense Force," Serenia said, recognition dawning in her eyes. "You're that Daniel Cross, the ghost of Sigma Station. 32 successful drops behind enemy lines." Daniel winced. "That was a long time ago." 3 years is not so long," Eris interjected, her tattooed arms making complex gestures as she spoke. "Though I suppose for humans, with your mayfly lifespans, it might seem like an eternity." Before Daniel could respond, the massive doors at the far end of the hall swung open. The figure that entered made all 4 sisters immediately drop to one knee, and Daniel found himself instinctively following suit, though he wasn't entirely sure why. She was ancient. That much was obvious. Her blue skin had faded to an almost silver sheen, and the crystalline structures on her head had grown into an elaborate crown that seemed to bend light around it. When she spoke, reality itself seemed to pause to listen. "So," the matriarch of House Kareth said, her voice containing harmonics that Daniel felt in his bones. "This is the human who saved my youngest daughter." She approached slowly, each step deliberate and measured. Daniel kept his head down, but he could feel her gaze like a physical weight. "Rise, Daniel Cross." He stood, meeting those ancient eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. What he saw there wasn't what he expected. Not judgment or dismissal, but curiosity. "Do you know what you've done?" she asked. "I'm starting to get the idea that it's more complicated than just pulling someone out from under a beam, ma'am." A sound that might have been laughter rippled through the hall. "Ma'am, how quaint. I am Matriarch Athelia Kareth, and I have ruled this house for 600 of your years. In all that time, no member of my family has ever been saved by an outsider. You are the first Catheri our house has seen in 3 centuries. Lucky me." "Indeed." She circled him slowly, much as Vera had. "The bond you now share with Lyra is ancient, predating our written history. It cannot be broken, cannot be transferred, and will only grow stronger with time. But there's more." "Of course there is." "By our laws, the Catheri of one daughter has the right to claim protection from all daughters of the house. You saved Lyra, but in doing so, you have become precious to all of them." Daniel glanced at the 4 sisters, noting how they were all watching him with varying degrees of intensity. Serenia's gaze was measuring, Eris's amused, Vera's calculating, and Lyra's. Lyra's was something he couldn't quite define. Meaning, meaning, the matriarch continued, that all 4 of my daughters are now honor-bound to protect you, to ensure your well-being, and to— She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. Compete for your attention. Compete for my what? The Quatheri bond with one creates a potential for bonding with all. It's how our ancestors ensured genetic diversity when our species was young. The human who saved one could potentially become mate to all. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. Mate. Nobody said anything about mating. I just saved her life. It was the right thing to do. And that, the matriarch said, something almost like approval in her voice, is precisely why you are so dangerous to the established order. House Dravok will not let this stand. A human in the line of succession for House Kareth. It will be seen as an abomination by some, an opportunity by others. I don't want to be in any line of succession. Want is irrelevant now. You are Quatheri. You are Kareth. Whether you wish it or not. She turned to her daughters. Prepare him, train him. The Dravok will come again, and when they do, they will come in force. As she swept from the hall, Daniel found himself surrounded by 4 alien women, each looking at him like he was a particularly interesting puzzle to be solved. So, Eris said brightly, shall we show you to your quarters? Fair warning. They're right in the middle of our wing of the Citadel. For your protection, of course. Of course, Daniel echoed weakly. As they led him deeper into the Citadel, Lyra fell into step beside him. Through their new bond, he could feel her genuine regret mixing with something else, hope. Maybe. I am sorry, she said quietly. But also, thank you. You saved my life when you had no reason to. I had a reason, Daniel replied, surprised by his own honesty. You reminded me of someone I couldn't save. She touched his arm gently, with one of her 4 hands, and the contact sent a shock through the bond that made them both gasp. Okay, Daniel said, pulling away. We're going to need some ground rules about touching. Vera's laugh was like ice cracking. Oh, human. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Looking at the 4 sisters, each powerful enough to level a city block, each now apparently bound to him by ancient alien law. Daniel couldn't help but agree. He'd walked into that tavern a few hours ago as a simple cargo hauler, trying to forget his past. Now he was Quatheri to alien royalty, bound by soul to one sister, and apparently pursued by 3 others, with a rival house likely planning his assassination, and a 600-year-old matriarch expecting him to somehow navigate the political minefield of galactic nobility. All because he'd saved one alien girl. The universe, Daniel reflected as he was shown to quarters that were larger than any apartment he'd ever owned, had a really twisted sense of humor. Daniel woke to the sensation of being watched. Not the paranoid tingle of battlefield awareness, but something more intimate, like gentle fingers tracing patterns on his consciousness. The Quatheri bond, he realized with growing unease. Even in sleep, he could feel Lyra's presence hovering at the edge of his mind, like a half-remembered song. The quarters they'd given him were absurd. The bedroom alone was larger than the cargo hold of his ship, with walls that shifted between transparent and opaque, based on some algorithm he couldn't decipher. The bed itself was a crystalline platform that somehow managed to be both solid and conforming, adjusting to his body temperature and position with unsettling prescience. A soft chime announced someone at his door. Before he could respond, it dissolved into mist, and Eris sauntered in carrying a tray that smelled of coffee and something else entirely. Morning, sunshine, she said, her 4 arms managing to make the simple act of setting down a tray look like an elaborate dance. Sleep well. No, you look terrible. Is it the bond keeping you up, or just good old-fashioned human anxiety? Both, Daniel admitted, sitting up and immediately regretting it as the room spun slightly. Is it always this intense? Oh, honey, this is just the beginning. Aris perched on the edge of his bed with a familiarity that would have been inappropriate if she seemed to care about propriety at all. The Catheri bond is like a river. Fight the current, and you'll exhaust yourself. Flow with it, and you might actually enjoy the ride. She poured him coffee from a container that shouldn't have been able to hold liquid given its geometry. The smell was perfect, exactly how he liked it, which raised questions he wasn't ready to ask. Your sister Vera tried to kill me 6 times last night, Daniel said, taking a grateful sip. Only 6, she must like you. Her record is 12 in a single evening. She wasn't actually trying to kill me, was she? Of course not. If Vera wanted you dead, you'd never see it coming. She was testing your reflexes, studying your patterns. It's how she shows affection. That's deeply disturbing. That's Vera. Eris's grin revealed those 2 sharp teeth again. You should be more worried about Serenia. She's planning your training regimen. And our dear eldest sister has some very traditional ideas about what makes someone worthy of the Kareth name. As if summoned by her name, Serenia appeared in the doorway, dressed in what looked like military training gear, adapted for someone with 4 arms. Her expression suggested she'd been awake for hours and judged anyone who hadn't to be morally deficient. You're late, she announced. Daniel glanced at the chronometer on the wall, which displayed time in a format he didn't recognize. Late for what? Training. If you're going to survive what's coming, you need to understand our ways. Combat, politics, culture, technology. You have the disadvantage of being human, which means you're fragile, slow, and ignorant of roughly 3,000 years of galactic history that any Kareth child would know. Good morning to you too, Daniel muttered. It's afternoon, Serenia corrected. The sedative in your welcome drink lasted longer than expected. Humans metabolize our compounds unpredictably. You drugged me. For your own safety. The first night of the Catheri bond can cause seizures if the nervous system isn't properly prepared. You're welcome. Daniel wanted to be angry, but through the bond, he felt a flutter of concern that wasn't his own. Lyra. She'd been worried about him. Where is Lyra? He asked. In the medical wing, Serenia replied. The assassination attempt left her with internal injuries that require careful treatment. She'll recover fully, thanks to you. Can I see her? After training? Serenia's tone brooked no argument. The Dravok won't wait for you to feel comfortable in your new role. Neither will I. The training hall was a nightmare of impossible architecture. Gravity seemed to flow in different directions, depending on where you stood, and the combat platforms floated at various angles that made Daniel's inner ear scream in protest. Serenia stood at the center, completely at ease despite being perpendicular to what Daniel considered up. First lesson, she announced. Forget everything you think you know about physics. Kareth technology manipulates space-time at the quantum level. Your human intuition will get you killed. She demonstrated by walking up what should have been a wall, each step causing ripples in reality that Daniel could somehow see, but not understand. I'm supposed to do that. Eventually, for now, we'll start with something simpler. She produced a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and a tuning fork. The resonance blade, standard armament for Kareth nobility. I prefer guns, Daniel said. Guns are for commoners and cowards. You are Catheri. You will learn the blade. The next 3 hours were humiliating. The resonance blade didn't just cut. It vibrated at frequencies that could disrupt molecular bonds. In Serenia's hands, it sang through the air, leaving trails of distorted space. In Daniel's hands, it felt like trying to conduct an orchestra while being electrocuted. You're thinking like a human, Serenia criticized after he dropped the blade for the 8th time. Stop trying to control it. The blade is alive, in its way. Partner with it. It's a piece of metal. It's crystallized dark matter wrapped in a probability field. Every swing exists in multiple quantum states until you commit to the strike. You're not just choosing where to cut, but which reality to manifest. Daniel stared at her. That makes absolutely no sense. Because you're thinking linearly. Humans experience time as a river flowing in one direction. We experience it as an ocean, with currents moving in all dimensions. She moved behind him, her forearms adjusting his stance with surprising gentleness. Close your eyes. Feel the bond with Lyra. She's part of you now. Yes. Daniel nodded, aware of that warm presence in his mind. The blade works the same way. It needs to become part of you, an extension of your will, rather than a tool you wield. He tried again, this time not thinking about the weight or balance, but imagining the blade as another limb. Something shifted. The weapon hummed in his grip, its resonance matching his heartbeat. Better, Serenia admitted. Now defend yourself. She came at him with brutal efficiency, her own blade singing death in four-part harmony. Daniel managed to parry the first strike, the impact sending shockwaves up his arms. The second strike knocked him flat. The third would have taken his head off if she hadn't stopped the blade an inch from his throat. You lasted 2 seconds longer than expected, she said, pulling him to his feet. We'll make a warrior of you yet. If I survive that long. A new voice cut through the training hall. He'll survive. I'll make sure of it. Vera materialized from shadows Daniel hadn't even noticed, dressed in something that might have been armor, or might have been her skin. It was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. She moved like liquid mercury, every step calculated for maximum efficiency. The Dravok are mobilizing, she reported to Serenia. My sources indicate they're calling in old debts, assembling a war fleet. They claim the human violated sanctuary law by killing their agents. Self-defense isn't a violation, Serenia argued. It is when the defenders aren't citizens of the conquered. Humans have provisional status at best. They're using bureaucracy as a weapon. Daniel lowered the resonance blade. So they're going to attack because of legal technicalities. No, Vera corrected. They're using legal technicalities to justify an attack they were already planning. Your involvement just accelerated their timeline. How long do we have? 3 days, maybe 4 if the matriarch can stall in the council chambers. 3 days. Daniel had 3 days to learn an entirely new way of fighting, navigate alien politics, and somehow become worthy of protecting a family he'd just met. I need to see Lyra, he said. Training isn't finished, Serenia protested. It is for today. Daniel was surprised by the authority in his own voice. If I'm going to fight for your family, I need to understand what I'm fighting for. The sisters exchanged glances. Through the bond, Daniel felt something shift, a flutter of anticipation that made his heart race. Lyra was awake, and she was waiting for him. The medical wing was a blend of technology and artistry that made human hospitals look like medieval torture chambers. Lyra floated in a regeneration field, surrounded by geometric patterns of light that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Her eyes were closed, but she smiled as Daniel approached. I felt you coming, she said softly, opening those violet eyes. The bond is stronger when we're close. How are you feeling? Alive, thanks to you. She gestured, and the field lowered her gently to the ground. Though I suspect you're regretting that particular decision right about now. Your sisters are intense. They're protecting what's theirs. And now, apparently, you're theirs too. She paused, studying him with an expression he couldn't read. Does that frighten you? Honestly, terrifies me. 3 days ago, my biggest concern was whether to haul medical supplies or mining equipment. Now I'm bonded to alien royalty and apparently starting a war. You're not starting anything. The Dravok and Kareth have been enemies for centuries. You're just the latest excuse. She moved closer, and Daniel felt that electric sensation again, like standing in a lightning field. this close. He could see that her crystalline crown wasn't separate from her body, but grew from it. Living crystal that pulsed with inner light. "Tell me about the bond," he said. "Really tell me, not the mystical explanation your mother gave." Lyra was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "My people are empathic by nature. We form connections easily. But the Catheri bond is different. It's not just emotional. It's quantum entanglement at the consciousness level. What you feel, I feel. What I know, you can learn. It's intimacy beyond what most species can comprehend. And your sisters, that's where it gets complicated." She moved to a window that looked out over the Kareth city, a sprawling metropolis of crystal spires and impossible geometries. "The bond with one creates potential with all. They feel drawn to you because I do, but also because you represent something unprecedented. A human in our bloodline would change everything." "I didn't ask for that responsibility." "No, but you took it anyway when you saved me." She turned back to him, and for a moment, her composure cracked. "Do you regret it?" Daniel thought about lying, about giving her the easy answer, but the bond made deception pointless. She could feel his emotions as clearly as her own. "No," he said finally. "I regret the complications, the politics, the fact that your sister Vera keeps trying to stab me in my sleep. But saving you, no. That was the first thing I've done in 3 years that felt right." The smile that spread across her face was radiant, and through the bond, Daniel felt her joy like sunshine on his soul. Then her expression turned serious. "There's something you need to know. The assassination attempt wasn't random. Someone in the Concord knew I'd be at that tavern. Someone leaked my location." "You think there's a traitor?" "I know there is, and I think they're closer than we realize." Before Daniel could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the citadel. The light from the windows shifted from natural to the harsh red of emergency lighting. Eris's voice echoed from hidden speakers, but for once, there was no humor in it. "All hands to defensive positions. Dravok ships detected at the system boundary. They're not waiting 3 days." Daniel and Lyra ran for the command center, finding it already crowded with Kareth military personnel. The main display showed a tactical view of the system, with angry red dots appearing at the edge, like drops of blood in water. 40 ships, Serenia reported, her voice steady despite the odds. "Heavy cruisers, full combat configuration. They're not here to negotiate." The matriarch stood at the center of it all, calm as the eye of a storm. "Open a channel." The display shifted to show a Dravok commander, his scaled skin the color of dried blood, eyes like chips of obsidian. "Matriarch Kareth, you harbor a criminal who murdered our agents in cold blood. Surrender the human, and we'll withdraw." "Your agents attacked my daughter without provocation," the matriarch replied. "The human acted in defense of Kareth blood. He is Catheri now, under our protection." "Then you choose war." "I choose family, as always. If that means war, so be it." The channel closed, and immediately the tactical display lit up with incoming fire. The Citadel's shields flared to life, turning the sky into a dome of crackling energy. "They're targeting the residential sectors," Vera observed. "They want casualties, not victory." "Evacuate those zones," the matriarch ordered. Then she turned to Daniel. "This is happening because of you, human. What do you intend to do about it?" Every eye in the command center turned to him. Daniel felt the weight of their expectations, their doubt, their hope. Through the bond, he felt Lyra's confidence in him, unwavering and absolute. He thought about his days in the Earth Defense Force, about strategies that had worked against superior enemies. The Dravok expected a traditional response, ship-to-ship combat following established rules of engagement. But humans had never been good at following rules. "You have stealth ships?" he asked. "Of course," Serenia answered. "How many?" "6 operational And the Dravok ships, they're configured for bombardment, not close-quarters combat. Correct. Their shields are strongest facing the planet. Daniel smiled, the expression sharp enough to make several officers step back. Then we don't fight them ship to ship. We board them. Board them. The matriarch's tone suggested he'd proposed flying into a star. That's insane. That's human. Look, the Dravok want to make this a political statement. Fine. Let's make our own. 6 stealth ships. 6 boarding teams. We take their flagships from the inside, broadcast their surrender across the conquered. Not only do we win, we humiliate them. The casualties would be enormous, Serenia protested. Not if we do it right. Vera, you could get a team inside their shield perimeter. The assassin's smile was all predator. Child's play. Eris, can you disrupt their internal communications? Oh, darling, I could make their computers sing lullabies if you asked nicely. And Serenia, you'd lead the primary assault team. The eldest sister straightened. If the matriarch approves. All eyes turned to the ancient leader. She studied Daniel for a long moment, and he could feel the weight of her years, the countless battles she'd overseen. You would risk yourself in this assault, she asked. I'm Catheri. Lyra's enemies are my enemies. Besides, Daniel's grin turned feral. I've been cooped up for 3 years. I could use the exercise. The matriarch laughed, a sound like crystal bells in a hurricane. Very well. You have command of this operation. Daniel Cross. Try not to start an even larger war. As the command center erupted into activity, Lyra pulled Daniel aside. You don't have to do this. The bond doesn't require you to die for us. No, Daniel agreed, checking the charge on a plasma rifle someone had handed him. But it's the right thing to do. Besides, I have a reputation to maintain. Can't have people saying the ghost of Sigma Station went soft. Through the bond, he felt her fear for him, but also her pride. She pulled him down and pressed her forehead to his, a gesture that sent warmth flooding through both their minds. Come back alive, she whispered. That's the plan. 30 minutes later, Daniel stood in the cargo bay of a stealth ship, so advanced it made Earth's best technology look like stone tools. Around him, Kareth warriors checked their weapons with practiced efficiency. Serenia stood at his right, Vera at his left, and Eris was somewhere in the ship's systems, preparing her digital assault. 2 minutes to shield penetration, the pilot announced. Daniel felt the familiar pre-combat calm settling over him like an old friend. His heartbeat slowed, his breathing steadied. This was what he knew, what he was good at. Not politics or bonds or mystical connections, but the simple clarity of combat. Remember, he addressed the warriors, we're not here to destroy them. We're here to make a statement. Disable, disarm, but don't kill unless necessary. We want them alive to spread the word you come for the Koreth. You deal with their human. Vera chuckled darkly. They're human. I like that. 1 minute to penetration. Through the bond, Daniel felt Lyra's presence, steady and warm despite the distance. It anchored him, reminded him what he was fighting for. Not just his own survival, but hers, theirs, this strange family he'd stumbled into. 30 seconds. The stealth ship shuddered as it passed through the Dravok shields, the sensation like nails on glass. Alarms began wailing on the enemy vessel, but it was too late. They were already inside. Breaching charges ready, Serenia reported. 10 seconds. Daniel hefted his rifle, feeling the weight of it, the potential for violence it represented. 3 years he'd tried to leave this behind. 3 years of running cargo, drinking in dive bars, pretending he was just another spacer. But some things you couldn't run from. Some fights chose you. Breach. The hull of the Dravok ship exploded inward, and Daniel charged through the smoke and flames, his war cry echoing through the corridors. Behind him came the Kareth warriors, their resonance blades singing death in harmonic frequencies. The Dravok warriors were ready, but they'd expected a traditional assault. They hadn't expected a human who fought like he had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Daniel moved through them like a force of nature, every shot precise, every movement calculated. 3 years of rust fell away like old paint, revealing the soldier beneath. "Command deck in 60 meters." Eris's voice crackled through his comm. "I'm in their systems. Their reinforcements are chasing ghosts on deck 12. "Good work." Daniel ducked as a plasma bolt seared past his head, then put 2 shots, center mass in the shooter. "Serenia, left flank. Vera, you know what to do." Vera vanished into the shadows, and 30 seconds later, the lights in the corridor went out. In the darkness, Daniel heard Dravok warriors screaming, then silence. "Path clear," Vera reported, materializing beside him with blood on her blades. They reached the command deck to find the Dravok commander waiting for them, surrounded by his elite guard, the same one who'd threatened the matriarch earlier. "The human shows himself," the commander sneered. "You think taking one ship will save your adopted family?" "No," Daniel admitted, then smiled as his comm unit crackled to life with reports from the other boarding teams. "But taking all 6 flagships might—" The commander's eyes widened as his tactical display showed ship after ship going dark. The Kareth hadn't just boarded one vessel. They'd executed 6 simultaneous assaults, and they were winning. "Impossible. The Kareth don't fight like this." "They do now," Daniel said. "You wanted to make this about me. Fine. I'm making it about you. Surrender. And this ends. Keep fighting. And I let Vera get creative with your crew." Vera smiled, the expression promising horrors beyond imagination. The commander looked at his tactical display, at his guards, at the human standing in his command center, like he owned it. Daniel could see the calculation in his eyes, the realization that he'd been outmaneuvered not by superior force, but by superior strategy. "I yield," the commander said finally, the words like poison on his tongue. "Louder," Daniel commanded. "Your entire fleet needs to hear it." The commander activated the fleet-wide comm. "All Dravok forces, this is Fleet Commander Thrax. Stand down. We have been defeated." As the Dravok ships powered down their weapons, Daniel felt a surge through the bond. Lyra's joy, her relief, her pride. But underneath it, something else. A warning. "Daniel," Eris's voice was urgent. "I found something in their communications. The leak didn't come from outside. Someone in the Citadel told them where Lyra would be." Daniel's blood ran cold. They'd won the battle, but the war was just beginning, and the real enemy was still hidden, still watching, still planning. "Secure the prisoners," he ordered. "We're heading home. We have a traitor to find." As the stealth ship departed the captured Dravok vessel, Daniel stared out at the stars, aware that his simple life as a cargo hauler was now completely, irrevocably over. He was Catheri, bonded to alien royalty, a target for assassins and politicians alike. But through the bond, he felt Lyra waiting for him, felt her sister's grudging respect, felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years' purpose. All because he'd saved one alien girl. The universe really did have a twisted sense of humor. The victory celebration was subdued, while the Kareth military toasted their unprecedented triumph. Daniel found himself in the matriarch's private study, surrounded by holographic displays showing intelligence reports, communication intercepts, and psychological profiles of every high-ranking member of House Kareth. 43 individuals had access to Lyra's schedule, the matriarch said, her ancient fingers manipulating the data streams with practiced ease. Of those, only 12 knew about her personal interest in Earth culture that would have drawn her to that particular tavern. "Earth culture?" Daniel asked, surprised. "My youngest daughter has always been fascinated by your species," the matriarch explained. "Your literature, your music, your peculiar ability to find hope in hopeless situations. The Void's Edge was known for importing Terran alcohol. The traitor used her curiosity as bait. Through the bond, Daniel felt a flutter of embarrassment from Lyra, who was elsewhere in the Citadel. So she'd been there because of an interest in humans, and ended up bonded to one. The irony wasn't lost on him. "We need to narrow it down further," Vera said, from where she stood in the shadows. Her presence so still, Daniel sometimes forgot she was there. "The traitor will make another move soon. They failed to eliminate Lyra, failed to provoke a full war. They'll be desperate. Or they'll go to ground," Serenia countered. "Wait for another opportunity." "No," Daniel said, studying the profiles. "They can't afford to wait. The Catheri bond changes everything. Every day that passes, I become more integrated into your house, more difficult to remove without causing a massive political incident. They'll act within the next 48 hours. "What makes you so certain?" the matriarch asked. "Because that's what I do. Strike while everyone's distracted by the victory, while security is focused on external threats rather than internal ones." Aris materialized in the room via hologram, her physical body somewhere in the Citadel's digital core. "I've been tracking anomalies in our communication systems. Someone's been using quantum encryption to send messages outside the Citadel. Very sophisticated. Almost invisible." "Almost," Daniel prompted. "They made one mistake. The quantum signature matches our own security protocols. Whoever's doing this has administrator access." The list of suspects just got much smaller. Only 5 individuals had that level of clearance: the matriarch herself, her 4 daughters, and Counselor Vrax, the matriarch said, her voice carrying a weight of disappointment. "He's served our house for 2 centuries. Long enough to grow resentful," Daniel suggested. "Or long enough to be compromised," Vera added. "The Dravok are known for their patience. They could have been cultivating him for decades." "We need proof," Serenia insisted. "We can't move against a counselor without evidence. It would tear the house apart." Daniel stood, pacing the room as he'd done countless times during mission planning. "Then we give him a target he can't resist. Me." "Absolutely not," Lyra's voice came from the doorway. She entered the study with the fluid grace that all Kareth seemed to possess, but Daniel could feel her agitation through the bond. "You're not using yourself as bait. It's the logical choice. I'm the variable he didn't account for. If he's going to make a move, it'll be to eliminate me." "The human has a point," Vera said, earning a glare from Lyra. "He's the weakest link, physically speaking. No offense. None taken. I'm aware I'm more fragile than a Kareth." "You're also the most valuable," the matriarch observed. "The first Catheri in 300 years. The human who defeated a Dravok fleet with unconventional tactics. Your death would be a symbol." "Exactly. Too tempting to pass up." Lyra moved closer to him, and Daniel felt her fear through the bond, sharp and cold. "There has to be another way." "There is," Eris interjected. "We could trace the quantum signatures back to their source, but it would take time we might not have." "Or," Serenia suggested, "we could interrogate everyone with access." "And alert the traitor that we're onto them," Daniel countered. "No, we need them to reveal themselves." The matriarch was quiet for a long moment, her ancient eyes studying Daniel with an intensity that made him feel like she was looking through time itself. "You remind me of someone," she said finally. "A warrior from long ago who also believed in calculated risks." "Very well. What do you need?" Over the next 6 hours, they crafted the trap. Daniel would attend the victory ceremony that evening, but his security would be deliberately, subtly compromised. Vera would shadow him from a distance. Eris would monitor all communications, and Serenia would position response teams throughout the Citadel. "And I'll be with you," Lyra insisted. "That's not the plan. The bond makes us stronger together. If someone attacks you, I'll sense it before it happens." She was right, and Daniel knew it. The Catheri bond had been growing stronger by the hour. He could feel her emotions as clearly as his own now, could sometimes catch fragments of her thoughts. It should have been invasive, but instead it felt like finding a piece of himself he hadn't known was missing. The ceremony was held in the Great Hall, a massive space where gravity flowed in artistic patterns, allowing guests to walk on what appeared to be walls and ceilings. Hundreds of Kareth nobility had gathered, their crystalline crowns creating a galaxy of lights in the darkened space. Daniel wore ceremonial armor that Serenia had insisted on, its surface rippling with reactive fibers that would harden under impact. It was lighter than his combat gear, but still felt like wearing a target. "Relax," Lyra murmured beside him, her hand brushing his. "You're broadcasting anxiety across the entire bond." "Sorry. I'm not used to formal events where someone's trying to kill me." "As opposed to informal events where someone's trying to kill you? Those I can handle." They moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and barely veiled curiosity in equal measure. The Kareth nobility were polite, but Daniel could see the calculations in their eyes. What did it mean? A human in their bloodline. How would it affect the balance of power? Counselor Vrax approached them with a warm smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was old, even by Kareth standards. His blue skin faded nearly to gray, his crown crystals clouded with age. "The hero of the hour," he said, inclining his head slightly. "Your tactics were unorthodox." "Desperate times," Daniel replied, watching the counselor's every micro-expression. "Indeed. Though I wonder what other human traditions you might introduce to our house. Your species has such a violent history." "No more violent than the Kareth," Lyra said coolly. "We've had our share of wars. But we've evolved beyond such base instincts. Haven't we?" Vrax's smile widened. "Though I suppose regression is always possible when new blood enters old lines." Through the bond, Daniel felt Lyra's anger spike. But before she could respond, Eris's voice whispered in his earpiece. "Quantum signature detected. Someone just sent an encrypted message. Sources: the Great Hall." Daniel scanned the crowd, looking for anyone acting suspicious. But these were trained politicians and warriors. Everyone looked suspicious. Then he felt a tremor in the bond. Lyra's sudden alarm. "Daniel, move!" He twisted sideways just as a microblade whistled through the space where his neck had been. The weapon, no larger than a fingernail, embedded itself in a pillar behind him, with enough force to crack the crystal. The crowd erupted in chaos, but Daniel was already moving, pulling Lyra behind another pillar as two more microblades sliced through the air. His eyes tracked their trajectory back to nowhere. The weapons seemed to be materializing from thin air. "Cloaked assassin." Vera's voice crackled through the comm. "New tech. I can't get a lock." "Aris, kill the lights," Daniel ordered. The Great Hall plunged into darkness. In the black, Daniel closed his eyes and reached out through the bond, using Lyra's enhanced senses. Kareth could see in spectrums humans couldn't, and through their connection, he caught a glimpse of heat signatures, electromagnetic fields, and something else, a distortion in the quantum field itself. There, a figure moving through the crowd, invisible to normal sight but clear as day to Lyra's perception. Daniel didn't think. He moved on instinct, tackling the invisible figure. They hit the ground hard, the assassin's cloak flickering and failing, revealing a Kareth in black armor, but not just any Kareth. "Counselor Vrax." Serenia's voice was shocked as the lights came back on. But it wasn't Vrax. The face was similar but younger, sharper. Daniel recognized him from the intelligence files, Vrax's son, Kallax, who supposedly died in a border skirmish 5 years ago. "Surprise!" Kallax snarled, a blade extending from his wrist. Daniel caught his wrist before the blade could find his throat. But Kallax was stronger, the blade inch by inch getting closer. Through the bond, he felt Lyra's power building, the same resonance she'd used in the tavern. "Together," she said, placing her hand on Daniel's shoulder. The bond flared to life, and suddenly, Daniel felt power flowing through him, not his own, but Lyra's, channeled through their connection. His strength doubled, tripled. He twisted Calex's wrist, hearing bones crack, then drove his knee into the assassin's chest, sending him flying across the hall. Calex rolled to his feet, but Vera was already there, her blade at his throat. "I wouldn't," she said softly. But Calex laughed. "You think you've won. This was just the beginning, Father." Counselor Vrax stepped forward, and Daniel saw the moment the old Kareth's facade cracked. The warmth drained from his eyes, replaced by cold calculation. "I served this house for 2 centuries, Vrax said, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "I gave everything to the Kareth, and what was my reward to watch my son sent to die in a pointless border conflict, while the matriarch's daughters lived in safety?" "Your son volunteered for that mission," the matriarch said, appearing at the top of the hall's central platform. "It was his choice." "His choice?" Vrax laughed bitterly. "He was trying to prove himself worthy of your notice, to earn what should have been his by right. But you were too busy coddling your own blood to see his potential." "So you faked his death," Daniel said, understanding clicking into place. "Had him train with the Dravok, prepare for this moment." The Dravok offered what the Kareth never would respect: position, power. All we had to do was remove the matriarch's line, starting with the weakest. His eyes fixed on Lyra. The one so fascinated by inferior species that she contaminated our blood with human filth. Daniel felt Lyra flinch through the bond, felt her pain at the betrayal, but also her strength, her refusal to be diminished. "That human filth just exposed your treason," she said quietly, "and saved our house from your poison." "Did he, or did he just delay the inevitable?" Vrax pulled a device from his robes, its surface covered in shifting symbols. "Do you know what this is? Human?" Daniel didn't, but through the bond, he felt Lyra's horror. "A quantum bomb," she whispered. "It'll destroy half the Citadel." "Unless," Vrax continued, "the matriarch abdicates, transfers power to someone more traditional in their views, someone who understands that the Kareth should remain pure." "You're insane," Serenia said. "I'm a patriot. This house has lost its way, allowing aliens into our bloodline, adopting their inferior tactics. We were meant to rule, not compromise." The device in his hand began to pulse, its symbols spinning faster. 30 seconds until activation, Eris reported. "I can't hack it remotely. It's biolocked to his quantum signature." Daniel's mind raced through options. They couldn't reach Vrax in time. Even if they could, killing him might trigger the device. They needed another solution. Then he felt it Lyra's mind touching his through the bond. Not with emotion, but with knowledge. She was sharing her understanding of quantum mechanics, of the science behind the bomb. And with that understanding came a possibility. "The bond," he said aloud. "It's quantum entanglement." "Daniel, what are you—" He grabbed Lyra's hand, then reached out to her sisters. "All of you, connect with us. Now." Serenia hesitated, but Eris understood immediately, grabbing her sister's hand. Vera was last, her cold fingers completing the circle. "You're all quantum entangled through family bonds," Daniel explained quickly. "Similar to the Quatheri but weaker. If we combine them, channel them through the Quatheri bond, we could create a quantum interference field," Lyra finished, understanding flooding through their connection. "Disrupt the bomb's cohesion." "That's impossible," Vrax scoffed, but Daniel saw uncertainty in his eyes. "Nothing's impossible," Daniel said. "That's what you never understood about humans. We don't accept impossible." He opened himself fully to the bond, letting Lyra's power flow through him while pulling the sister's energy into the loop. It was like being struck by lightning and embraced by starlight simultaneously. He could feel all four sisters, Lyra's warmth, Serenya's strength, Eris's chaos, Veyra's precision, all flowing through him, using him as a conduit. The air around them began to shimmer, reality bending as four Kareth warriors channeled their power through a single human. The quantum bombs pulsing became erratic, its symbols fragmenting. No, Vrax tried to stabilize the device, but it was too late. The bomb didn't explode, it simply ceased. Its matter unraveled at the quantum level, dissipating into probability clouds that sparkled briefly before vanishing. The effort dropped Daniel to his knees, his vision spinning. He could feel the sisters' exhaustion through the bond, their power depleted. But they'd done it. Vrax stood frozen, disbelief written across his face. Impossible. You're just a human. Yeah, Daniel gasped, struggling back to his feet with Lyra's help. But I'm their human. The matriarch descended from her platform, each step resonating with authority. Counselor Vrax, Kallax of the presumed dead, you are charged with treason against House Kareth. The penalty is death. Wait, Daniel said, surprising everyone, including himself. They have information about Dravok operations, about other potential traitors. Kill them now, and we lose that. You would spare the ones who tried to murder you, the matriarch asked. I'd use them, turn them into assets. That's what humans do, we adapt, we learn. We turn weakness into strength. Through the bond, he felt the sisters' various reactions, Serenya's approval, Veyra's amusement, Eris's delight, and Lyra's pride. The matriarch considered this. Very well. They will be interrogated, their knowledge extracted. Then they will face judgment. She turned to the assembled nobility. Let this be a lesson. House Kareth evolves or dies, and with the Cathari bond restored, we choose evolution. As guards took Vrax and Kallax away, the hall erupted in discussion. Some voices were approving, others skeptical, but all were engaged. The attack had failed, but it had also exposed the deep divisions within Kareth society. You realize what you've done, Serenya said quietly to Daniel. You've just positioned yourself as a political player, not just a curiosity. I was trying not to die. Same thing in our world, Veyra observed. Lyra squeezed his hand, and through the bond, he felt her exhaustion, but also her determination. There will be others who think like Vrax, who see you as a contamination rather than an evolution. Let them come, Eris said cheerfully. This is the most excitement we've had in decades. Daniel looked at the four sisters, each powerful enough to level city blocks, each now connected to him through bonds he was only beginning to understand. 3 days ago, he'd been nobody. Now he was at the center of a political and social revolution. I need a drink, he muttered. Terran whiskey, Lyra asked with a small smile. The strongest you've got? As they left the great hall together, Daniel caught a glimpse of their reflection in a crystalline wall, one human surrounded by 4 alien warriors, all moving in unconscious synchronization. They looked like what they were becoming, a unit, a family, something new and unprecedented. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, through the bond, he felt something he hadn't experienced since the war ended: belonging. Later that night, after the interrogations had begun and the citadel had settled into uneasy quiet, Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking the alien city. Lyra found him there, as he knew she would. The bond made hiding impossible. You saved us, she said simply. Again. We saved each other. I couldn't have done any of that without you, without your sisters. Our sisters, she corrected. You're part of this family now, whether you wanted it or not. About that, Daniel turned to face her. The matriarch mentioned something about the Cathari bond and mating, multiple mating. Even in the darkness, he could see her blush, her blue skin darkening. It's complicated. The bond creates potential, not obligation. You're not required to. That is, we wouldn't expect. But you all feel it, the pull. Yes, she admitted. Even Vera, though she'd die before admitting it. The bond recognizes you as genetically compatible and psychologically complementary. It's pushing us toward you. And you specifically. She met his eyes, and through the bond, he felt her emotions laid bare: desire, fear, hope, uncertainty, all tangled together. I've been fascinated by humans since I first learned about your species, she said. Your resilience, your adaptability, your insane ability to pack bond with anything. I went to that tavern hoping to observe humans in their natural habitat. Instead, I found you. Lucky you. Yes, she said seriously. Very lucky. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the bond humming between them like a living thing. So what happens now? Daniel asked. Now we prepare. Vrax's interrogation has already revealed 3 other conspirators. The Dravok are mobilizing their allies. Other houses are choosing sides. This was just the opening move in a larger game. And I'm a piece on the board. No, Lyra said firmly. You're a player. The first human to ever sit at the table, that's why they fear you. They should fear you. All of you. I've seen what you can do. But you've shown us what we could become. Together. She paused, then added, the matriarch wants to formalize your position. Make you officially part of the succession. Daniel's stomach dropped. I didn't sign up for... I know. But the universe doesn't care what we signed up for. She touched his face gently, with one of her 4 hands. You saved an alien girl. Now you have to deal with the consequences. Which include her 3 gorgeous sisters who won't leave me alone. Lyra laughed, the sound like music through the bond. Among other things. As if summoned by the mention, Eris appeared on the balcony in a shimmer of light. Sorry to interrupt the romantic moment, but we have a problem. The interrogation revealed something interesting. The assassination attempt at the tavern. It wasn't meant to kill Lyra. What Daniel and Lyra said simultaneously. It was meant to wound her, to put her in a position where someone would have to save her. Someone Vrax had positioned to be there. Someone who would become Kotheri and be under his control. But I saved her instead, Daniel said, understanding dawning. Exactly. You weren't supposed to be there. You were a random variable that destroyed a plan years in the making. So all of this, everything that's happened, is because you decided to drink in the wrong bar at the right time, Eris confirmed. The universe has a sense of humor after all. Daniel laughed. The absurdity of it all finally hitting him. He'd spent 3 years trying to avoid getting involved, trying to live a quiet life. And one random decision had thrown him into the middle of galactic politics, bonded him to alien royalty, and started what might become a civil war. All because he'd saved an alien girl. No good deed, he muttered. Goes unpunished, Lyra finished. That's a human saying, isn't it? Yeah, though in this case I'm not sure if this is punishment or reward. Through the bond, he felt amusement from all 4 sisters. They were all listening. He realized privacy was going to be a challenge. Both. Vera's voice came from the shadows. Definitely both. Get used to it, Serenia added, appearing in the doorway. You're Kareth now. Complexity is our specialty. Daniel looked at the 4 sisters, each unique, each dangerous, each now irrevocably part of his life. 3 days ago, he'd been alone. Now he might never be alone again. The thought should have been suffocating. Instead, it felt like coming home. All right, he said finally. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Tomorrow, I want full intelligence briefs on every house in the Conquered. I want to know who our allies are, who our enemies are, and who's sitting on the fence. I want defensive scenarios, offensive capabilities, and contingency plans for every possible betrayal. Giving orders now, Serenia asked. but there was approval in her tone. Someone has to, and apparently, I'm the random variable that everyone's trying to figure out. Might as well use that. The human has a point. The matriarch's voice came from inside. She entered the balcony, moving with the grace of someone who'd never known weakness. You've already changed the game simply by existing. Now, you must decide, will you be a passive piece, moved by others, or will you move yourself and shape the board to your advantage? Daniel met her ancient eyes, feeling the weight of her expectations and the strength of the bonds connecting him to her daughters. I'll play, he said, but by my rules, not theirs. The matriarch smiled, an expression that transformed her face from ancient authority to something almost maternal. Good, because the real war is just beginning, and I have a feeling we'll need every advantage your chaotic human nature can provide. As she left, Daniel found himself surrounded by the four sisters, each standing at a cardinal point around him, like guardians or wardens, he wasn't sure which. No pressure, he said dryly. Oh, there's enormous pressure, Eris said cheerfully. The fate of our house, the balance of power in the Concord, the future of human-Kareth relations. It all rests on your shoulders. You're not helping. I'm not trying to help. I'm trying to prepare you for reality. The reality where I went from hauling cargo to being the most wanted man in the galaxy in 3 days? 4 days, Lyra corrected. It's past midnight. Even better. Through the bond, he felt their collective amusement, but also their determination. They were in this together now, for better or worse. The traitor had been exposed, but the conspiracy ran deeper. The Dravok were still out there, planning their next move, and somewhere in the shadows, other enemies were watching, waiting for their opportunity. But for now, in this moment, Daniel stood with his new family, weird, dangerous, and complicated as they were, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, even if it came with 3 gorgeous sisters who wouldn't leave him alone. The Council of Houses convened in the neutral zone, a massive space station that existed outside any single house's jurisdiction. Daniel stood in the Kareth delegation box, wearing ceremonial armor that felt like it weighed a ton despite being made of ultra-light composites. Through the transparent floor beneath his feet, he could see the swirling nebula that marked the boundaries between territories. Remember, Serenia whispered beside him, show no weakness. Half these houses would see you dead just for existing. The other half, Daniel asked, are trying to figure out how to use you for their own advantage. Vera replied from his other side. Charming. The council chamber was arranged in concentric circles, with the 12 major houses occupying the inner ring. The Dravok delegation sat directly across from them, their scaled forms radiating barely contained hostility. Between them, in the center of the chamber, stood the Arbiter, a being from a species so ancient that no one remembered their original name. The emergency session is called to order, the Arbiter announced, its voice resonating through dimensions Daniel couldn't perceive. House Dravok has brought charges against House Kareth regarding the unprecedented bonding of a human to their noble line. Lord Commander Thrax stood, the same Dravok Daniel had defeated in the shipboarding. The humiliation of that defeat was written in every line of his rigid posture. The human known as Daniel Cross has contaminated one of the oldest bloodlines in the Concord, Thrax declared. The Catheri bond was meant for our own kind, not for primitive species that have barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Murmurs rippled through the gathered houses. Daniel felt Lyra's anger through the bond, but also her restraint. This was political theater, and every word mattered. The matriarch rose gracefully. The Catheri bond chooses. It is not chosen. Daniel Cross saved my daughter's life when Dravok assassins, yes. We have proof attempted to murder her. The bond formed naturally, as our ancient laws decree. Ancient laws written when all members of the Conquered were equals, another voice interjected. Daniel turned to see a representative from House Meridian, their translucent forms shifting like living water. Humans are provisional members at best. They have no standing to claim such bonds. Since when does saving a life require standing? Daniel found himself speaking before he could stop himself. The chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to him. I saw someone in danger and acted. That's what humans do. We don't check political status before deciding whether someone deserves to live. You speak out of turn, human, Thrax snarled. I speak as Catheri of House Kareth, Daniel replied, surprising himself with his steady voice, which, according to your own laws, gives me the right to address this council. The Arbiter tilted its head, a gesture that somehow conveyed amusement. Technically correct. Continue, Daniel Cross. Daniel stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes. Through the bond, he felt the sisters' various emotions: Serenya's approval, Eris's delight, Vera's calculating interest, and Lyra's pride mixed with concern. You want to talk about contamination, Daniel said, his voice carrying across the chamber. Fine. Let's talk about it. 3 days after I saved Lyra Kareth, House Dravok sent 40 warships to destroy a civilian citadel. I led the defense that captured 6 of their flagships, without destroying a single vessel. No Kareth died in that battle. How many of your own people would have died, Lord Thrax, if we'd fought conventionally? Thrax's scales darkened, but he didn't answer. The real contamination, Daniel continued, is the fear of change. The terror that someone different might actually make things better. You're so focused on keeping things the way they've always been that you can't see the opportunities in front of you. What opportunities? House Meridian's representative asked, genuinely curious now. Hybrid strategies, combined technologies, new perspectives on old problems. The Catheri bond doesn't just connect me to House Kareth, it connects humanity to the broader Concord in a way that benefits everyone. Pretty words, Thrax spat. But you're still just one human. What happens when you die? The bond dies with you, leaving House Kareth weakened and humanity no better off. Before Daniel could respond, Lyra stood. Then we ensure the bond continues. The chamber erupted. Even the matriarch looked surprised. Explain, the Arbiter commanded. Lyra's 4 hands moved in a complex gesture of formal address. The Catheri bond with one creates potential with all. My sisters and I have already felt this pull. If Daniel chooses, he could bond with all 4 of us, creating multiple lines of succession that bridge human and Kareth genetics. Preposterous, someone shouted. Unprecedented, another added. Exactly, Eris said, standing with a grin that showed all her sharp teeth. When has House Kareth ever settled for precedent? Serenya rose as well. I am first daughter of House Kareth, trained in combat since I could walk. I say the human has proven himself in battle. If the bond extends to me, I would accept it. Vera materialized from the shadows, where she'd been standing. The human's tactical mind is interesting. I would not reject such a bond. Daniel stood frozen, his mind reeling. They were publicly declaring their willingness to bond with him, in front of the entire Concord. Through the Catheri connection, he could feel their sincerity. This wasn't just political maneuvering, though it was. That too, it was a genuine offer. This is obscene, Thrax roared. You would pollute your entire line with human genetics. We would evolve, the matriarch said, her voice cutting through the chaos. As life has always evolved, through combination and adaptation. The question, the Arbiter said, its otherworldly voice silencing the chamber, is whether the human consents to this arrangement. Daniel Cross, you understand what is being proposed. Multiple Catheri bonds would fundamentally alter your existence. You would become more Kareth than human in many ways. Daniel looked at the 4 sisters, each powerful, each offering something unprecedented. Through the existing bond with Lyra, he could feel the edge of what connecting with all of them would mean a network of consciousness, shared strength, shared vulnerability. "I need time to consider," he said finally. "Time you may not have," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see a figure entering the chamber, a human woman in Earth Defense Force dress uniform, her rank insignia marking her as Admiral. Daniel's blood ran cold. He knew that face. "Admiral Sarah Mitchell," she announced. "Earth Defense Force, speaking with full authority of the Terran Council." "Sarah," Daniel breathed. It couldn't be. Sarah had died on Kepler Station. He'd watched the explosion himself. "Hello, Daniel," she said, her eyes meeting his with an expression he couldn't read. "Surprised to see me?" "You're dead. I saw you die." "You saw what you needed to see. The mission required it." She turned to address the council. "Earth has been monitoring this situation with great interest. The Cathari Bond represents an unprecedented opportunity for humanity to establish permanent ties with the conquered." "You knew," Daniel said, understanding flooding through him. "You knew about the Kareth, about the bonds, about all of it." "We've known for years. Why do you think you were discharged to this sector, Daniel? Why do you think your cargo routes always brought you near Koreth space?" The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. Through the bond, he felt Lyra's shock and anger on his behalf. "You used me. We positioned you. There's a difference." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "You were the best soldier we had, Daniel. The most adaptable. The most capable of forming connections across species lines. We knew if anyone could bridge the gap between humanity and the Kareth, it would be you. So my saving Lyra was genuinely your choice. We couldn't predict that. We just made sure you were in the right region of space when opportunity arose." The council chamber was dead silent, everyone processing this revelation. "Earth officially supports the Cathari Bond," Sarah continued, "and any extensions of it that Daniel Cross consents to. Furthermore, we propose a formal alliance between Earth and House Kareth, sealed through these bonds." "You can't be serious," Thrax said. "Deadly serious. Humanity needs allies in the conquered. House Kareth needs fresh genetic material and new tactical perspectives. It's a perfect match." "It's manipulation," Daniel said, his anger building. "You let me think I was free, that I was making my own choices." "You were. We just made sure you had the opportunity to make them." Sarah stepped closer to him. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But think about what's at stake here. Not just for you, but for both species." Through the bond, Daniel felt Lyra's hand slip into his. Her presence was steady, anchoring. "The question remains," the Arbiter said. "Does Daniel Cross consent to the proposed bonds?" Daniel looked around the chamber at the hostile Dravok, the curious Meridians, the calculating representatives of other houses. Then, at the Kareth delegation, the matriarch watching with ancient eyes. The four sisters each waiting for his decision. Finally, he looked at Sarah, the woman he'd thought was dead, who'd apparently orchestrated his entire post-military life. "I make my own choices," he said firmly. "Not for Earth, not for politics, not for anyone's grand plan." He turned to the sisters. "If I do this, it's because I choose to. Because despite all the manipulation and lies, what I feel through the bond is real." He stepped into the center of the chamber, addressing everyone. "You want to know what humans bring to the table? Fine. We bring chaos. We bring unpredictability. We bring the ability to look at your ancient traditions and ask why. We bring the audacity to save someone just because it's right, not because it's advantageous." He looked directly at Thrax. "And yes, we bring contamination. We contaminate stagnation with growth. We contaminate fear with hope. We contaminate the way things have always been with the possibility of what they could become." Daniel turned back to the sisters. "I accept the possibility of extending the Cathari Bond, but on one condition. It happens naturally, by choice, not by political decree. If bonds form with Serenia, Eris, or Vera, it will be because we both choose it, not because a council demanded it. That could take years, someone protested. Then it takes years, Daniel said. Anything worth doing is worth doing right. The matriarch smiled. Spoken like true Kareth. Or true human, Sarah added. Always making things complicated. The arbiter raised one hand, and the chamber fell silent. The council will vote, all in favor of recognizing the Catheri bond between Daniel Cross and House Kareth. Hands rose throughout the chamber. Not a majority, but close. All opposed. More hands, led by the Dravok delegation. Abstaining. The remaining houses raised their hands, choosing neutrality. The arbiter calculated for a moment. The vote is inconclusive. However, since no majority opposes, and the bond exists regardless of political recognition, the council acknowledges the current reality. Daniel Cross is Catheri to House Kareth. Any further bonds will be recognized as they form. This isn't over, Thrax warned. No, Daniel agreed. It's just beginning. As the council dispersed, Sarah approached him, up close. He could see the scars she'd acquired since Kepler Station, the weight of years in her eyes. I know you hate me right now, she said quietly. Hate's a strong word. Deeply disappointed might be closer. I did what I had to do for humanity. You lied to me. Let me think you were dead. Would you have made the same choices if you'd known I was alive? If you'd known Earth was watching? Daniel wanted to say yes, but honesty forced him to consider. I don't know. Exactly. You needed to be free to become who you are now. She gestured to the sisters, who were maintaining a respectful distance. Look what you've accomplished. You're the first human to ever stand as an equal in the Concord's highest chambers. I'm a curiosity. You're a bridge, and bridges are built from both sides. Sarah pulled out a data pad. This contains Earth's full intelligence on the conquered houses. Consider it a peace offering. Daniel took it reluctantly. This doesn't make us even. I know, but maybe someday you'll understand why I did it. As Sarah left, Lyra approached, her sisters close behind. That was unexpected, Eris said cheerfully. Your dead girlfriend isn't dead. How very human, complicated, and messy. She wasn't my girlfriend, Daniel corrected. She was my commanding officer. Who you had feelings for, Vera observed. The micro-expressions were obvious. Ancient history. Not so ancient, Serenia said. She still affects you. Through the bond. Daniel felt Lyra's concern and something else, jealousy. The emotion was quickly suppressed, but he'd felt it. Whatever Sarah and I were, it's over, he said, meeting Lyra's eyes. That's not who I am anymore. The matriarch joined them, her expression thoughtful. The council may not have fully endorsed our position, but we've gained something valuable: visibility. Every house in the Concord now knows about the Catheri bond. Some will see opportunity, others threat. We must be ready for both. What about the Earth Alliance? Serenia asked. We consider it carefully, the matriarch replied. Your Admiral Mitchell is clever. She's turned Daniel into a symbol that both species can rally around. Without asking me, Daniel pointed out. The universe rarely asks permission, the matriarch said. We merely adapt to what it gives us. As they prepared to leave the station, Eris pulled Daniel aside. You know there's something else happening here, right? Besides the political maneuvering and my dead-not-dead former commander. The timing. Sarah Mitchell appears just as the council convenes, just as you're about to make a decision about extending the bonds. Eris's four arms wove complex patterns as she spoke. Someone told her exactly when to arrive for maximum impact. You think there's another player. There's always another player. The question is whether they're friend or foe. Before Daniel could respond, his datapad chimed with an encrypted message. The sender was anonymous. The content brief: the Meridians know about Earth's real plan, Be ready. A friend. He showed it to Eris, who immediately tried to trace the source. Nothing. Whoever sent this is very good at covering their tracks. Or very powerful, Vera said, appearing beside them. She'd obviously been monitoring their conversation. Few could hide from Eris's skills. Earth's real plan, Daniel muttered. Because fake death and manipulation wasn't enough. Through the bond. He felt Lyra's presence approaching before she appeared. Whatever's happening, we face it together. That's what the Katheri bond means, shared strength, shared burden. Even if more bonds form, Daniel asked, looking at all four sisters. This could get complicated quickly. Life is complicated, Serenia said, joining them. But you've already proven you can handle our kind of complicated. As their ship departed the station, Daniel stood on the observation deck, watching the nebula swirl past. Four sisters stood with him, each connected to him in different ways, Lyra through the full bond, the others through potential and growing affection he could no longer deny. Behind them, Earth was playing games he didn't fully understand. Ahead, enemies like the Dravok were planning their next move. And somewhere, an unknown friend was warning him of dangers yet to come. You know, he said to no one in particular. 3 weeks ago, my biggest worry was making rent on my ship. And now, Lyra asked, now I'm trying to figure out how to navigate a multi-species political crisis while potentially bonding with 4 alien sisters and dealing with my not-dead former commander's secret agenda. So, an improvement, Eris said brightly. Despite everything, Daniel laughed. You know what, yeah, it kind of is. Through the viewing port, he saw other ships departing the station, representatives of dozens of species, all carrying news of what had happened in the council chamber. The human who'd become Katheri, the sisters who'd offered to bond with him, the possibility of change in an ancient system. They're all watching us now, Vera observed. Every move we make will be analyzed, interpreted, used for or against us. Then we give them something worth watching, Daniel said. We show them that humans and Kareth together are stronger than either alone. Starting with finding out what Earth's real plan is, Serenia added. Your Admiral Mitchell may think she's clever, but she doesn't know the Kareth. We have ways of uncovering secrets. And I have ways of making people talk, Vera said with a smile that would have been terrifying if Daniel hadn't grown used to it. First, we return home, the matriarch said, entering the observation deck. The Citadel needs to be prepared for whatever comes next, and Daniel needs to continue his training. The Katheri bond may give him strength, but skill must be earned. As the ship entered hyperspace, Daniel felt the bond's pulse with energy, Lyra's fully formed connection, and the nascent links with her sisters. He was changing. He could feel it. Not just physically. Though the Katheri bond was doing things to his nervous system he didn't fully understand, but mentally, emotionally, even spiritually if he believed in such things. 3 days ago, no. A week now, he'd been nobody special. Just another human veteran trying to forget his past. Now he was at the center of a galactic incident, bonded to alien royalty, manipulated by Earth's military, threatened by ancient houses, and warned by mysterious allies. All because he'd saved an alien girl in a bar. Hey, Lyra said softly, moving closer to him. Through the bond, she pushed comfort and affection. You're overthinking. It's what I do. It's what you did. Now you have us to help carry the mental load. 4 alien sisters sharing my thoughts. What could go wrong? Everything, Serenia said seriously. Which makes it interesting, Eris added. And potentially profitable, Vera noted. But worth it, Lyra finished. Daniel looked at them, his strange, dangerous, beautiful new family. Then at the stars streaming past, carrying them toward an uncertain future. Yeah, he agreed. Worth it. The message pad chimed again. Another encrypted message. The Meridians move in 3 days. The Earth fleet is already positioning. Choose your side carefully. A friend. Daniel showed it to the others. The matriarch studied it with ancient eyes that had seen countless schemes. So it begins, she said. The real war. Not between houses, but between philosophies. Those who embrace change, and those who fear it. And we're the symbol of change, Daniel said. No, the matriarch corrected. You're the catalyst. The change itself is what happens next. As the ship continued through hyperspace, Daniel felt the weight of that responsibility, but also, through the bonds, the strength to bear it. He wasn't alone anymore, for better or worse. He had a family, a weird, complicated, dangerous family that happened to include 4 alien sisters who wouldn't leave him alone. Somehow, that made everything else bearable. The attack came during the ceremony of bonding acknowledgement. Daniel stood in the center of the Kareth Grand Amphitheater, surrounded by crystalline pillars that sang in harmonics beyond human hearing. The formal robes they'd dressed him in felt like wearing liquid starlight, constantly shifting between states of matter in response to his movements. Around him, hundreds of Kareth nobility had gathered to witness the official recognition of his Catheri status. He should have known it was too quiet. The first sign was Vera suddenly stiffening beside him, her hand moving to where her blade would be, if ceremony hadn't required them to come unarmed. Through the bond, Daniel felt Lyra's alarm spike a fraction of a second before the ceiling exploded. Meridian shock troops poured through the breach like living water, their translucent forms making them nearly invisible against the crystal architecture. But these weren't normal Meridians. Their bodies were laced with some kind of tech that made them solid enough to carry very real, very deadly weapons. "Get the matriarch out," Daniel shouted, his combat instincts overriding ceremony protocol. But the matriarch stood firm, her ancient hands already glowing with power that made reality ripple around her. "I have defended this house for 6 centuries. I do not flee from puddles." The insult might have been more effective if said puddles weren't currently firing concentrated plasma bursts that turned crystalline pillars into molten slag. Daniel rolled behind cover, his mind racing through options. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and the Meridians had clearly planned this for maximum impact. But they'd made one mistake. They'd assumed the human's weakness would make him an easy target. Through the bond, he felt Lyra's location, 20 meters to his left, pinned down with a group of young Kareth nobles. Her sisters were scattered throughout the amphitheater, each fighting their own battles. But the bond was more than just awareness. It was connection. "Lyra," he said, not with his voice, but through their link. "Remember the quantum disruption we created to stop Vrax's bomb? That nearly killed us both. We're stronger now, and we don't need to disrupt, we need to amplify." Understanding flooded through the bond. The amphitheater's crystalline structure wasn't just decorative, it was a massive resonance amplifier, designed to enhance the harmonic frequencies of Kareth ceremonies. "Eris," Daniel shouted, "can you access the amphitheater's acoustic controls?" "Little busy right now," Eris replied, her forearms currently wrapped around a Meridian soldier's neck, while she tried to avoid being shot by 3 others. Serenia appeared from nowhere, her ceremonial robes torn and bloodied, a borrowed blade singing death in her hands. She carved through the Meridians, threatening Eris with brutal efficiency. "Now would be good," Serenia barked. Eris's eyes went wide as she dove into the amphitheater's systems, through some kind of neural interface Daniel didn't understand. "Got it. But if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, it could bring down the entire structure." "Or save it," Daniel said. "Trust me." Through the chaos, he saw them Earth Defense Force soldiers, moving with the Meridians but clearly not part of their unit. Sarah's people. This wasn't just an attack. It was a coordinated betrayal. Rage flooded through him. But Lyra's presence in his mind tempered it, shaped it into something useful. Not blind fury, but cold purpose. "Everyone down," Daniel commanded, his voice somehow carrying over the battle. The Kareth, trained to respond to authority, dropped. The Meridians and Earth forces, confused by the sudden lack of resistance, hesitated. That hesitation was all they needed. Daniel and Lyra reached for each other through the bond, their consciousness merging in a way that should have been impossible. Through their connection, they pulled Serenya's strength, Eris's creativity, Vera's precision. 5 minds became one, focused on a single goal. The amphitheater's crystals began to resonate. It started as a low hum, below the range of most species' hearing. But it built quickly, each crystal picking up the frequency and amplifying it, passing it on to the next in an exponential cascade. The Meridians, beings of liquid consciousness, began to writhe as the resonance interfered with their cohesion. Impossible! One of them managed to gurgle before its form lost coherence entirely, splashing to the floor in a puddle of sentient water. The Earth forces, merely human, clutched their heads as the subsonic frequencies wreaked havoc on their inner ears. Weapons fell from nerveless fingers as soldiers collapsed, incapacitated but alive. Daniel held the resonance for 30 seconds that felt like hours. Then, let it fade. The amphitheater fell silent except for the groans of defeated enemies and the drip of reforming meridians. "Secure them," the matriarch commanded. And Kareth guards moved in, equipped with containment fields, specifically designed for liquid-form species. Sarah Mitchell stood among the captured Earth forces, blood running from her ears, but her eyes still defiant. "You don't understand what you're doing, Daniel. The Meridians know something about the Kareth that changes everything." "Save it for the interrogation," Daniel said coldly. But Sarah laughed, a bitter sound. "You think this was the attack? This was just the distraction." Before Daniel could respond, Eris screamed, not vocally through the communication network, a digital shriek of alarm that set every display in the amphitheater blazing with warning signals. "The Citadel's core," she gasped. "Someone's in the quantum core. Oh no. Oh, this is bad." "Explain bad," Serenia demanded. "They're not trying to destroy it. They're trying to download it. Every secret, every genetic record, every technical specification of Kareth technology. And they're almost done." Daniel was already running. The sisters close behind. The Citadel's quantum core was its heart, and brain combined a crystalline structure the size of a building that stored not just data, but the quantum patterns of every Kareth who'd ever lived. If someone stole that. They reached the core chamber to find it empty, except for a single figure standing at the main console, a human in unmarked black armor, their hands deep in the quantum interface. "Stop!" Daniel shouted, raising a weapon he'd grabbed from a fallen guard. The figure turned, and Daniel's blood froze. He knew that face, those eyes, that sardonic smile. "Hello, brother," Marcus Cross said. "Marcus, you're dead. You died at Sigma Station. Did I, like Sarah, just disappear when it became convenient?" Marcus's hands were still in the interface, lines of quantum data flowing through him like he was made of light. The family reunion nobody wanted. "Why?" Daniel asked, his weapon steady despite his shock. "Because someone needs to level the playing field. The Kareth have hoarded their technology for millennia, keeping other species subservient through controlled scarcity. Earth wants their piece. The Meridians want theirs. And I'm the broker making it happen." "That's not your call to make." "Isn't it you've gone native? Daniel, bonded yourself to aliens, forgotten what you are, human. Our species has been held back, kept as second-class citizens in a galaxy we're more than capable of dominating. The Kareth aren't our enemies. They're not our friends either. They're using you, just like Earth is, just like everyone does. At least I'm honest about it." Through the bond,